This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneur the Playbook, and I have Rich Big Daddy Salgado. Most people know him as Big Daddy, but he has a real name. That's what he told me. What a pleasure. He is CEO of Coastal Advisors, LLC. And I'm going to start right where we were talking, is every entrepreneur thinks there's like this straight, direct path to success, whatever profession they want to get into. You know, for me, it was sports agentry. Everybody asked me, do I go to law school? And I really wanted to tell them, do you know where I started? You know, I went to law school to be a lawyer, not a sports agent, and I ended up in technology all over the place. Your path has been unconventional. So what I'd like to start with is, how did you arrive here? What was that journey, and where did it start, and what ideas did you have at the beginning?
Well, it's funny, you know, when I got out of school, I went to the University of Maryland, you know, played football there. I found myself 3 years being sort of a valet kind of Cato Caitlin to my college roommate, who was Neil O'Donnell and went to the Steelers. So while I was there, you know, besides doing all that Cato Caitlin stuff, I was meeting so many people. And, you know, all of a sudden I become friends with Mario Lemieux, the hottest ticket in Pittsburgh at the time when they were winning Stanley Cups. And, you know, people would say to me, wow, are you Mario's bodyguard or something? Because, you know, I'm standing next to him, but I'm bigger than everybody. All these hockey players are all skinny, short, whatnot. And by that being in the right place at the right time, it helped build my network. Then it was like, okay, what do I do with that network? And all of a sudden I found myself, I met Mario's agent, who was Tom Rich, big baseball hockey agent in the 80s, 70s, 80s. And I started working for him. And then all of a sudden I was recruiting players, and then I found myself with a football player. But Tom wasn't really into football. He had worked with the old Steelers and whatnot, but I needed an up-to-date guy. So he said, call Ralph Sindrich, who's in town. So all of a sudden now I find myself, I'm working for Ralph and Tom. And I have a pretty good go at it in the first 2 years. I'm like, wow, this is a great business because I'm bringing in these guys, making all this money. Then I hit the old year 3, 4 where I couldn't catch a cold. And I was like, well, I guess this isn't as easy as I thought it was. And a friend of mine brought me the insurance idea. He said, with all the people that you know, we could make a killing because you would open up the doors and I would do the rest. So I did open up one door for him, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, this guy's making some serious money off this one. I could do this. So boom, all of a sudden I get into the business, and then he quits after I get into the business and moves. So I'm like, what am I doing now? I don't know where to go. I got all these licenses. I don't know what to do. But then I was like, wait a minute, I do know what to do. Let me go back to both agents. And, you know, as anything, it takes a while to build up trust. Even though you're bringing them clients and making them money, you know, you still have to protect your client and make sure that I know what I'm talking about. So that took a little bit of a while, and I did that. And then it allowed me to not only work with the players they have, but with everybody. So I kind of went from branding where I worked for 2 agents. Now I had to brand myself into the insurance guy, and that I didn't work for the 2 agents. So that kind of separated, things. And then that led to meeting so many people in different places that I always say, the guy that was cleaning up the jocks and the socks, 10 years, 15 years down the road, was a vice president of an NFL team, was running a shoe company, Nike.
Self. Yeah, be kind to your future self.
That's right. So
yeah.
I've always, to this day, the equipment manager in every team is the guy that you always respect the most. And you know why? Because they always have the most staying power. GMs, head coaches, presidents change all the time. The equipment guy, 9 out of 10 times, he's the guy there for a good 20, 30-year run. So I've always come from that trait of making sure you take care of the little guy before you worry about the big guy.
I always say treat your friends like your bosses and your bosses like your friends.
Yeah.
It's an interesting economy. One thing that I've been asked about great entrepreneurs and successful people, they say, well, you know, a lot of them start out as like the nanny or the best friend or whatever. And I always say, you know, that's not exactly what you're looking at. I believe likes attract likes. So if you have an extraordinary person and you end up being Tom Cruise's nanny, and that leads you in, or I had a buddy that was a golf pro that Sidney Frank, ended up having him be his valet, his assistant, the guy who
Yeah.
started Grey Goose. He ended up being the vice president of marketing for Grey Goose and Jaeger, millions of dollars. But there was a reason, and I believe that you might have been roommates with Neil, and that led to opportunity. But you were that person. You carried something that he wanted you to be around. He could have selected anyone, not his friend.
Yeah.
And those qualities are what has made you successful, of an emotional attachment that you're able to get with someone. You also have a keen emotional intelligence, like knowing the equipment manager is the guy you want to know, and this is something that can't be taught. Where do you think those qualities came from, that just, no matter, I have a feeling, what you did and where you were, you figure out where the better situation is, where other people, oh, this is over, and they go ahead and make themselves a victim. You seem to, whatever happened, you made it your story.
It's funny. I'm one of those guys, I'm loyal to a fault, okay? And I may stick with something that's longer than the average person may, because they'll say, there's nothing there, it's dead, it's dead. And without naming people, I've had people that have had to eat crow because they'll turn around and say to me, you know what, you were right. I can't believe you were so dead on. And I'm like, and I wasn't guessing, I just had the feeling that this is what needed to be done, and I had to take baby steps to make sure that I'd be able to walk and then run, or let's say jog, because you want to keep consistent. And I say it's like running around a track. I don't have to be Carl Lewis and get around that track, in 4 seconds or less. I just have to be able to get around the track. That's
Spoke like a
always,
true lineman there, buddy.
yeah, exactly. I was never a fan of the 12-minute run. You know what used to, and I always use scared motivation. I used to say, I will never miss that 12-minute run, because I don't want to be the guy who's embarrassed, one, and two, I don't want to be the guy that has to run after practice because I didn't make that 12-minute run.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if you know how things have changed in football since we played. I wonder if they even allow the 12-minute run anymore. They've changed so many.
Yeah,
it's
what?
Like everything's so soft. I wonder if they consider that punishment.
That's a great, that's a great point, because I always say, I go, my Lord, if people saw some of the coaches that I had growing up, they'd be in jail.
Oh, please.
Just by not hitting or anything, by just yelling.
Yeah,
I mean,
grabbing your face
yeah,
mat and the
or-
words that came out of their mouth
Yeah.
with your parents. I played Pop Warner. Did you play Pop Warner?
yeah, I played Pop Warner.
Yeah, I remember being 10 years old, and I was thinking the other day when they had the Supreme Court justice stuff, I was like, if that poor coach that coached me when I was 10, if he was up for Supreme Court justice, all it would take is one of those parents on the sideline that were laughing when he was screaming and calling me names.
Yeah.
One of them started with the P word,
Yeah.
holding my face mask and shaking my head, which is the worst thing you can do for a brain. Like the poor guy would be crucified.
Yeah, I was more afraid of my high school football coach than my parents.
Oh, I hated my college football coach.
And I wanted to, I wanted to make sure that I made that man happy and did everything possible to make it work. So
This brings up a really good point, because I'm blessed to be around the world's greatest football players, and there's stuff that you learn on the football field, especially when we played, when there's 3-a-days,
Yeah.
and a lot of different things that really test the pain threshold. One of my greatest fears of being a parent of 4, and I grew up broke. There was a high pain threshold in my life.
Mm-hmm.
As I worry, like, how do we teach kids today to have that type of fortitude and strength when there's so much protection, there's so much really ease, the instant gratification, there's things that we're losing, and I don't want to say toughness, because I have a lot of young people and they're tough.
Yeah.
And they got it somewhere, but where do you think, or how do you think we can teach that still today, without having some of the experiences we had?
I think the best analogy to use, I use the best term, is I always use this even in business. I tell people the most successful people are the ones that can eliminate distraction.
Wow, focus.
I
there.
said focus. I go, for instance, if you have a tragedy, look, I'm not saying if someone dies or something, that you don't mourn and you don't respect and all that, but if you need to go, let's say you're a football player, you need to go to football practice, take care of your business on the field. Once you walk off the field or you walk out of the facility, you can go back to being a human being and do the mourning and do whatever you need to do to show respect for her, whoever that is. And I think it's even like dating. You know, the biggest joke, the biggest thing I used to laugh at, and my freshman year I learned the hard way, was you're out there on the field and the coach is saying, you guys should be so ecstatic that you're here. You know how many people wish they were playing football right now and they were in your spot? But the end, you got to remember that your girlfriend right now is at the beach with the other guy. Don't worry about that stuff, you know? And that's where the eliminate distraction, I think, works. And I think the most successful people that can do that, whether it's in sports or in business, you know, you'll succeed because you prioritize what is important and what you need to do to get to the next level.
It's interesting because compartmentalization like that is a great talent and skill to stay focused on what you're doing. But there's still the emotional aspect. You know, for example, I had a cancer scare in my family, and I'm very compartmentalized. I stayed so focused, and the pressure and the emotional side, finally, you know, by Friday of that week, you know, right before I'm going to find out the results for my family member, like I lose it in the office. Right, I just, and my president, she's wonderful. She, like, you know, I yelled at someone for nothing, and she looked at me and she goes, "What's really bothering you?" I broke down crying.
Yeah.
Do you, or are you able to not only compartmentalize the energy and issue, but also the emotions that go along with it? Because, like you said, my dad died, and I worked right through it. I gave my respects. I did everything. But, you know, I went home and sobbed like a baby for 2 months. But when I got to work, it was like being right back on the football field. Do you have any tricks or suggestions or advice for the compartmentalization of the emotions?
You know what? I went through it. I'm an aneurysm survivor. So in 2008, I had an aneurysm, and you know, I said to myself, for a minute, I let myself go, and I was upset. Like, I cried, and I said, "Why me, man?" I'm like, you know, I'm shocked. But luckily, knock on wood, we caught it before it burst. So
wow.
I just needed to go and have surgery and correct the issue and whatnot. And I let that bother me for one day. And then I just said, look, I have to have surgery, and the thing that really got me was all the paperwork that you're signing, where you basically you're giving everything away if you're dead, and you're willing to deal with it. So I said one thing. I go, look, I have been, done, seen some of the greatest things on this planet that some of the people with all the money in the world can't do. I've done it. So if God decided to take me that day, I can't complain. I'm happy. I'm all right with it. It's his decision. And I had the surgery, and I think being mentally strong, I was out 7 days after the surgery, which they told me I was going to be there for like about 5 to 6 weeks. And I walked out the 7th day. And it took me about 2 years to get back on my feet to be kind of normal, because even though I was out, I couldn't go very far because of exhaustion, and I had train tracks in my head and all that. But I said, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to try to make a difference in this world somehow, some way, because I've been given a second chance. And I think that's the way I lead my life now. And listen, I've failed at some things. I failed at a marriage. But you know what? It was the best thing for me. I moved on, and I've learned from it. And that's what I think every day is a learning experience. And what allows me to learn every day is when I meet people like yourself, and I meet people when I'm over doing stuff at Fox, when I'm out interviewing people, whether I'm around entrepreneurs or business people all the time. Every day is a learning experience, but I also leave each person with a message that they want to learn about me, what I do, who I am. And I think that's what helps me a ton.
Well, we're going to help a lot of people on the Playbook for sure. Where does that optimism come from, right? Were you born with it, or is it a practice trade like a muscle? Because you're extremely optimistic.
Yeah, I think it's more of, in the younger ages, I was more reserved. And I wasn't the smartest guy. I tell people all the time, listen,
academically smart.
Academically. I went to prep school to get into college. And you want to talk about 3-day practices, some of the guys that would be watching this who went with me would relate. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, you know, and to be told when to study where you come from a non-study background, the hardest thing I've had to do. Every night, 7 to 10, study hall, and you had to study. But that's what helped me propel to get into college. And, I went to school for free on a scholarship, which is great for your parents and whatnot. And also being a minority was even a big thing for our family, who no one ever went to school.
It's huge.
So it's huge. So it's, I stay positive, and even when there's a negative, like I said, eliminate distraction. The negative, I'm one of those people, I hate to go back and dwell on it. I fell off the bike and I cut my knees, on a Monday. The following Monday, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, right.
It happened, Band-Aid or healing, whatever the case, get up and get moving.
Yeah, no doubt. My dad used to tell me, he's like, look, I know you stubbed your toe, but it's like kicking your other foot and stubbing that toe as a solution to stubbing your toe.
Yeah.
Why would you stub your toe after you stub one toe to prove that it's stubbed? Why stop stubbing your other toe? I don't want to hear it, right? It's no more why me, it's try me, and kind of work from there. I believe that we're here to learn lessons as well. Lessons keep on coming until we learn them. I say until we learn them, they show or manifest themselves in pain. You're full of lessons, and it's been such a great blessing to have you on the Playbook. I have kind of these golden rules and golden lessons that I like to share. What's, either one or some of, the key lessons in life that you've learned that you'd like to share on the Playbook?
I said it before. I think it's express who you are and let people know who you are and what you do. Like I said, I have a football camp that I run every summer. And I bring in NFL coaches and players. My brother Jimmy is a Buffalo Bills assistant coach, and he runs the camp. And the thing that I always stress, and I got this from Brian Baldinger, NFL Network, he said one day, if every camper could take a message from everyone here that's teaching and coaching and take that message back to their school and use it in a positive force, then we did our jobs. Because you listened to what we had to say, and that say is something that will help you, your teammates, and your team at one point or another. And I think that's the key in what I do on a day-to-day basis is express myself, give a message, be positive. And, insurance has a negative stigma since before you and I were born. It's the old,
Right.
I sell insurance and I die and someone
But
gets
everybody
paid.
has it.
And everybody has it. And you know what? In our country and with life, with a home and car, it's mandated. You have to have it. So, but I try to take that to a whole different level in regards to letting it be exciting, not be negative or be boring. You know what? If you do this now, you'll be set later on, and you'll take care of your family, your business, your employees, and so on and so on and so on. But make it a priority and learn how to do it in a cost-effective manner.
Absolutely, and it's so interesting you say that because, as you may or may not know, I went through a period where I lost over $100 million, and I started realizing, wow, I could have just had an insurance-based annuity and not lost ever a penny that I earned. If I just focused on earning money and not trying to play things that I didn't understand or didn't know or had a tremendous amount of risk, I would have been fine. And so I'm a huge fan of the insurance. But more importantly, I think listening to all of the lessons that I learned, it still takes me back to the very first lesson that I learned about you, is you are someone that is kind to their future self. Every situation you're in, as I hear the stories and the lessons, it's, I treated this person nicely. I was kind in this situation, this person, even in your business, the insurance business, you're being kind to your future self, right? Your whole perspective is today's great. Yesterday was great. Today's better, but like the future is always brighter for you. And so you're going to always be kind to somebody today and make somebody better so that in the future it'll be even brighter. And I really appreciate you giving that perspective and lesson on the Playbook. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate being here. And like I was saying before, it's finally I get to meet face to face. I've read about you, so now it's my honor to be here. So thank you.
There you go. See, I'm one of the few people that look better in person.
And you know what I always say, jokingly around, I said, I'm no oil painting. So what you see is what you get.
That's beautiful with people. You can't ask Picasso to paint with crayons. We got Rich Big Daddy Salgado with Dave Meltzer here on Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.